All of Alberta's energy resources, oil, gas, bitumen, all of our agricultural products are exempt from tariffs. And that's what we've got to be working towards for every single product.
Valuable a bitumen pipeline would be. We'd be talking about a million barrels a day in egress. And if you look at today.
And they're not asking Ottawa for permission anymore.
Alberta just signed a massive pipeline deal with the USA to export 1 million barrels of oil a day. No Ottawa permission slip required.
That everybody now understands how dangerous it is to rely on a single trading partner, and we've got to get all of our products.
Danielle Smith calls it a nation-building move backed by $3 billion in Indigenous equity, green tech, and real jobs. Finally, Albertans are working for Alberta, not just feeding the East.
Saskatchewan and Alberta just dropped a nuclear announcement that could literally split Canada.
The reason the federal government isn't prepared to make the changes, I have to say, the Americans are still very interested in working with us.
No more asking for permission. No more polite emails to Ottawa that end up in some federal recycle bin. Alberta just signed a massive, multi-billion-dollar pipeline deal with the United States. And yes, it's as big as it sounds. We're talking about 1 million barrels of oil a day getting pushed straight into American and international markets. That's not just some handshake behind closed doors. That's $20 billion a year flooding into Alberta's economy while Ottawa sits on its hands.
Alberta produces 4.2 million barrels of oil per day. That's 1.5 billion barrels annually. To put that in percent, that's more oil than most OPEC nations produce.
Premier Danielle Smith isn't calling it a project. She's calling it a nation-building move. You know, the kind of thing you do when you're done begging for stamps of approval from bureaucrats. Instead of asking the federal government for a hall pass, Alberta's rewriting the rules. And it's not a whisper, it's a megaphone announcement.
Alberta's energy sector alone contributes over $70 billion to Canada's GDP. Without Alberta, the federal government in Ottawa would face a near $20 billion shortfall every single year.
Now let's talk numbers, because this isn't just about oil barrels. Alberta is already pumping 4.2 million barrels per day. That's more than what some OPEC countries can manage. And this deal, it expands that reach with a 42-inch wide pipeline. You could drive a smart car through that thing. The goal? Send it right out through British Columbia's northwest coast like it's the new express checkout lane for global oil.
All of Alberta's energy resources, oil, gas, bitumen, all of our agricultural products are exempt from tariffs. And that's what we've got to be working towards for every single product that we have going back and forth between our borders.
Here's the kicker. Ottawa has been the main character in blocking progress. They've shut down over $500 billion worth of infrastructure over the years. Just flushed it down the greenwash toilet. So now Alberta's drawing the line. They gave Ottawa 6 months. That's it. Support the plan or get out of the way. Alberta's patience ran out somewhere around the 5th time Ottawa formed another review committee.
The deal's been done behind closed doors. And now they're negotiating the terms of the deal.
But this isn't just one pipe in the dirt. This is the port-to-port corridor. This bad boy stretches all the way from Alberta to Prince Rupert and even Churchill, Manitoba. Yes, Churchill, the Arctic export hub with icebreakers and everything. Alberta isn't just selling oil to America. It's tapping into Europe and Asia, cutting out the middlemen, and proving that yes, they can build things without a federal apology tour. Now,
well, Alberta, Premier Danielle Smith has made it abundantly clear what Alberta's priorities are, and they are one or more pipelines, and the more the merrier from her point of view.
Now, here's where it gets technical, but don't worry, we're keeping it simple. The pipeline is set to carry anywhere between 800,000 and 1 million barrels a day, depending on the flow. But here's the smart part. It doesn't rely on just one single corridor like past disasters. It's made of redundant smaller routes, so if one piece gets stuck in climate debate limbo, the rest keep chugging. And this thing isn't running on duct tape and hopes. We're talking high pressure operation, advanced pumping stations, storage hubs, and real-time leak detection systems.
So this is not just an ideological argument. It's not just a minor disagreement. Oil is by far the most valuable export for Canada.
Like actual sensors that can spot an issue within minutes, not after a press conference. It's safety on steroids, designed to outpace Canada's regulatory red tape by being so modern it probably confuses the regulators. Let's look at the export side. The plan targets Prince Rupert and Kitimat in British Columbia. both key to shipping to Asia. Currently, Prince Rupert handles 30 million tons of goods a year. Alberta wants to crank that up to 100 million. Why? Because that'll slash shipping time to Asia down to just 8 to 10 days. That's faster than Ottawa's response time to literally anything.
Is that the world changed 6 months ago, that everybody now understands how dangerous it is to rely on a single trading partner, and we've got to get all of our products.
Now let's talk about what could have been. If those federally cancelled projects like Keystone XL, Northern Gateway, and Energy East had actually been built, Alberta would be exporting 2.5 million more barrels per day right now. You know what that means? That means Canada flushed away $55 billion a year in potential GDP. Alberta alone missed out on $17 billion annually just from that. That's like setting piles of cash on fire because a committee couldn't make up its mind.
Former Energy Secretary under Donald Trump, Dan Brouillette, joins me now. So Dan, if it happens, and that's a big if, what does that mean for America?
Now zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Alberta's GDP currently sits at $340 billion, and they're sitting on 165 billion barrels of proven oil reserves. At today's prices, that's about $9 trillion worth of underground wealth. But thanks to endless regulations and red tape, Alberta's acting like a broke roommate instead of the energy powerhouse it actually is.
It controls 75% of Canada's oil production, are absolutely united in standing up for their own citizens as over and against the dismissive entitlement mentality of Ottawa.
And let's not forget how much Alberta gives. They make up 14% of the country's economy, but only 11% of the population. And in the last 10 years, Alberta has sent $250 billion more to Ottawa than it got back. That's like paying for everyone's dinner while being told your seat at the table is under review.
Alberta single-handedly generates 14% of Canada's entire economic output, while housing only 11% of its population.
Let's be honest, when politicians say Indigenous equity, most of the time they mean a photo op, a ribbon cutting, and a pat on the back. Alberta, nope, they're doing it differently. The Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation has already locked in $750 million. Real money, real equity for Indigenous communities. Not empty promises, not glossy brochures, actual investment with actual returns. What a concept, right?
But I think you have to look at this through a political lens. Canada is in a tough situation. It's very dependent upon U.S. refiners and U.S. refinery markets. So a lot of their oil comes to the U.S.
And that's just the beginning. Danielle Smith isn't stopping at some feel-good number for the headlines. She's planning to scale that to $3 billion. That's billion with a B. That means Indigenous groups won't just be sitting at the table, they'll own part of the table. We're not talking about ceremonial involvement or token advisory councils anymore. This is full-on co-developer, equity holder, profit-sharing status. Indigenous communities finally get a slice of the pie they've been standing next to for decades. About time.
It marks an important step forward in uniting our country as Alberta joins forces with Ontario to pursue our shared goals of economic growth, opportunity, and prosperity.
The goal? Net zero emissions in the oil sands by 2050. And who's leading it? Not the feds, not Ottawa, not a UN panel. It's the Pathways Alliance, a coalition of Alberta's own biggest oil sands companies. Alberta didn't wait for a national framework or a prime minister selfie. They just opened their wallets, rolled up their sleeves, and got to work. And while critics keep crying greenwashing, Alberta's actually out here installing the hardware. You don't capture carbon with hashtags.
Danielle Smith says Ottawa has about 6 months to prove that they are serious about this idea.
Now, let's zoom out, because this pipeline isn't just a construction project. It's turning into a full-blown political earthquake. Danielle Smith isn't flying solo on this one. She's forming a real alliance, and it's not a weak handshake deal either. She's joined forces with Wab Kinew, Manitoba's premier, you know, the guy who just approved Manitoba's first gold mine in 15 years, and Scott Moe from Saskatchewan. Together, they're backing the port-to-port corridor like it's the Western Province's moon landing.
Today's signing marks an historic partnership founded in a mutual ambition to reach the full potential of our province.
Saskatchewan doesn't even need this pipeline to ship its oil west. But Moe's still on board. Why? Because he gets the bigger picture. With Alberta taking the lead, railways open up. agriculture exports get faster, bottlenecks vanish, and suddenly the whole West starts moving like an actual economic unit. It's a win for everybody, even if your oil isn't the one in the pipe.
And here's where it gets absolutely infuriating for Albertans. Over the last decade, Alberta sent nearly $250 billion more to Ottawa than it received back in federal spending.
And guess what? People in Alberta are taking notice. Support for separation is now at 37%. Yes, 37%. That's not some fringe movement in a Facebook group. That's more than a third of the province saying, you know what, maybe we'd be better off on our own if Ottawa keeps acting like we don't exist. And who can blame them? When your projects keep getting blocked, your economy gets milked, and your voice gets ignored, what do they expect?
It might take some convincing with BC, and Ottawa has to make good on its promise to build infrastructure. Jordan Canagan reports.
And then there's Bill C-69, the so-called No More Pipelines bill. Because what investor doesn't love 5 years of red tape, intersectional paperwork, and climate virtue tests so vague you could fail them by sneezing in the wrong direction? It's a masterclass in how to strangle investment while pretending to care. That bill has made private investors run the other way so fast they leave carbon footprints just from the sprint.
The Premier says the province is actively working to find a private sector partner for a pipeline project out.
So what's Alberta doing? They're skipping the circus. No more jumping through flaming hula hoops while Ottawa checks if your carbon intensity aligns with someone's Tumblr post. This pipeline isn't just about oil. It's Alberta drawing a line in the sand. It's not energy policy anymore. It's economic sovereignty, regional independence, and a clear message to Ottawa. If you're not helping, we're not waiting. And here's the thing. British Columbia, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan are on board. That's not a coincidence. That's a Western Bloc forming in real time, and it's not asking for permission slips anymore. These provinces are connecting, cooperating, and cashing in, while Ottawa's still wondering how to form another committee to study the idea of possibly discussing infrastructure at a future date. Maybe. Hit that subscribe button because Alberta's just getting started, and the next move might shake all of Canada.